Okay, welcome to the School Building Committee meeting of June 18th. The first thing we need to do is to call the roll. David Sawyer? You here?
Present.
Jason Parento?
Present.
Lori Reagan?
Present.
Jackie Romanicki?
Here.
Jerry Freecott? I can see you, Jerry. You're muted. We'll say Jerry's here anyway because I can see him.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Bill Rooney?
Here.
Terry DeSisto? Does not appear. Scott Domenici? Apparently not. Ed Stanton is here.
Yeah.
Mark Furtado?
Here.
Rob Geddes?
Here.
Stephen Withers Jr.? I don't think he's here. Mike Tyler?
Here.
And Andy Acosta emailed saying he would not be here. So we have a quorum, so we can begin. First order of business is to approve the May 13th minutes. Is there a motion, Jackie?
Move to approve.
And is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those, sorry, we got to do a roll call again. Dave Sawyer?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Laurie?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And by the way, just for the record, the mayor sent me a text and said that he had another obligation tonight. That's why I'm presiding. Okay, so we now have approved the minutes. We have bills from Skanska, Castle Booze, and from Consigli. So first I will ask Mary Ann or Ann Jeanette, are the Castle Booze and Consigli bills in order to be paid? Mary Ann?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And Jeremy, does the Skanska bill look to be in order to be paid?
Except for one thing, which we noticed while we were going through preparation for bill paying today. There was a transposition of numbers on one of the lines. So instead of 125,620, it should be 125,260. So I spoke with Anjanette and she gave me an updated bill schedule, invoice tracking, and updated the overall packet. So we'll go ahead and process that next week, should the committee approve tonight. But that number should be 260, not 620.
Okay, good. So Jackie, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I'll call again. Dave Sawyer,
Yes.
Jason Parento,
Yes.
Laurie Reagan,
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki,
Yes.
Jerry Freecott,
Yes.
Bill Rooney,
Yes.
Ed Stanton,
Yes.
Mark Furtado,
Yes.
Rob Geddes,
Yes.
Mike Tyler,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, it's unanimous. Okay, so should we move on to Steve Johnson? Are you going to be addressing us next?
Actually, Jack, we wanted to change it up just a little bit. Craig Olson is going to speak first about the one issue listed at the bottom of the page, the acoustical shells.
Okay, so we'll jump down. Craig?
I don't see Craig. This is Joe. I don't see Craig on the
all right, there we go.
on the list of people.
I pulled a Steve.
There he is. Oh, bad news. Okay.
Pulled a Steve. Yeah, so the acoustic shells for the auditorium, it was brought up for us to talk tonight about. This is it's something that can be procured through FF&E, and it's often procured through the construction budget because of the cost of the items. What we're talking about is in the auditorium, when you see those shells in the back that are white, that are concave, and the function of them is when you're in a auditorium, the auditorium is designed to push the sound out and out to the audience. But when you get to the stage and behind the proscenium opening with the curtains and all of the other elements in the stage and the volume, that the sound can that in there when the music is being performed gets lost a lot into the stage behind the proscenium. And so the function of these shells, which are very common in the music in high schools, especially, to push the sound out rather than let it die behind the proscenium. We brought this up to the working group initially because it was discussed at the programming meetings. And as we were nearing the GMP, we brought it up again purely under the reasoning that for discussion purposes and understanding where it could be procured for. The reality is we know that more than likely it won't be able to be afforded in the FF&E budget. So we proposed it now as an option so that then it's built into the GMP and then you would get state reimbursement from it. Otherwise, you could do the watch, wait, and see of trying to get it in the FF&E if there's money, or using savings at the end of the project, if there are any, to then procure them. And in that scenario, that you would not get reimbursement from the state. And so just wanted to kind of have people understand how that fits into what we're talking about and as it relates to the GMP that we're discussing tonight. I'll kind of turn it over to Steve from there to kind of.
Well, let me just ask a couple of questions first.
Yeah, sure.
So if I understand you right, what you're saying is that we have room in the GMP to include this item?
Yes, I'll answer that one. We have it. We currently have an allowance for it, Jack, captured in the GMP.
Okay, and it would be reimbursable if we do it this way, but not reimbursable if we take it out of FF&E, which we know is going to be tight anyway, right?
Correct.
And it also would, if we took it out of the contingency at the end, that would not get reimbursed either. Is that correct?
Correct.
So therefore, I guess the other question is, and I'll ask Bill Rooney if he's the right person to direct this to. This is a request of your staff, is that correct?
A request of my staff?
Or whoever it is that is the theater department.
I can help Bill in answering that. It is yes, that was brought up in programming, and we advised the group that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to provide it when we talked to them about wants and needs. This was a want and a nice to have. It does help with what they're trying to do with the kids, as well as just from a performance standpoint and creating the opportunities for the kids to show their talents to the public during concerts. So it was a request, but it wasn't a must to have.
And
Jack, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to include this in the project budget and not in the FF&E budget.
is there a second to that?
Second.
What's the cost of this, Craig?
Steve,
It
you see what I did there?
Yes, I did. 30,000.
They're just around 35,000.
35,000. Thanks, Corey.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions, comments, any discussion? Okay, the motion is in order. I'll call the roll. Dave Sawyer,
Yes.
Jason Parento,
yes,
Laurie Reagan,
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki,
Yes.
Jerry Freecott,
Yes.
Bill Rooney,
Yes.
Ed Stanton,
Yes.
Mark Furtado,
Yes.
Rob Geddes,
Yes.
Mike Tyler,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. It is unanimous, and we are including it in the GMP.
Excellent.
So now does that put you up, Steve, for the
Yes, it does.
monthly update, the OALs, change orders, change proposal log, GMP? Take it away.
Yes to most of that. We'll start with the update. I'll see if I've passed screen sharing 101 here, and I'll put the aerial photos up. All right, can people see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start with, I know a lot of you were able to make the tour last week. It does look a little different, but mostly the same. So just, again, this is the south view, standing from the south looking north. We've continued to make some good progress on steel erection. This section right here in the middle is the auditorium. So a lot of that roof auditorium steel is done. A lot of you see some deck work over on the right-hand side, some decking. The major focus right now is this empty area over here, which is the gymnasium. The trusses for the gymnasium have been delivered to the site and will start to be installed. So that gym will take shape, which will be very cool to see. And then they'll work their way into the middle of the building here, which will be the last section that they erect for the steel.
And that's the cafeteria, right, Steve?
Yes, right down the middle. Yep. And then the mason continues to work right down here in the middle. That's a 4-story section of stair. They have moved on to the other stairway. They are on site. We continue with some underground mechanical installation. And then also on the 4th floor, 3rd floor, and 2nd floor, a lot of these slabs have been poured in place, the concrete slabs. We had another pour last night. We have got a couple more to go, and then we'll move down to the 1st floor, the slab on grade. That's exciting for us because it opens up a lot of space to be able to get some different trades in. We have trades in on the 4th floor that are starting hangers for duct work and piping and that kind of stuff. The framing sub, our drywall sub, is working on some of the roof parapet framing and sheathing that's going to allow the roofer to start all that white that you see up on the roof. That's the roofing material. We're hoping to get them out next week to start that. That'll be good for us because the faster we get the roof on, the faster the building gets dry underneath for the most part, and that opens it up even more work. Other major news, we will shift over to progress on the western field, hopefully. Let me do this. Do this. So western field, we're making good progress as well. A lot of progress been made here. This this section right here is the infiltration basin that was installed last summer. Not really related to the field, but we've started to install the fence posts. You can kind of see them here that go around the perimeter of the entire field. And then we're also pouring some concrete footings along the perimeter. And over the next couple of weeks, you'll start to see a stone layer go across the entire field. And right now we are still targeting just after July 4th to actually have the turf company on site to start laying down the turf. So good progress here. Weather's helped out nicely on both the field and the building. You can see actually some more of the masonry work here. And then lastly, we've made some more progress on the mock-up that's going to show the different exterior facade materials. Brick is going to be ongoing, and hopefully next week the brick and the precast will be complete and actually be something nice to look at. And then we'll move on to the glass glazing and metal panels on that mock-up. So knock on wood, people are healthy and the job continues to hum along. I don't know if there's any specific questions. I know a lot of you saw it last week, like I said, so I don't know if there's any questions left over from last week or anything for this week.
Steve, a couple of questions. One is, when are we expecting to have the building closed in?
That'll be later this year, in the October, November range.
Which will allow you then to work all winter inside the building, correct?
Yeah, yep. So we'll still need temporary heat. So there'll be some large units outside and temporary duct work and temporary heat. But yes, we'll work right through the winter.
Is the electric service connected or is that temporary as well?
It's temporary right now. So we are working with National Grid. They have to pull electricity from one of the poles here. So we're installing some conduit that's going to be able to feed our temporary electric service for the entire construction process. But we've got a generator on site to kind of bridge the gap between now and when that work is complete.
Also, when will we be teeing up the new Brennan Way or taking away the curved area we're looking at right now?
We are not doing that anytime soon, Jack. We had talked in the past about leaving this as is because you can see right here. So if we were to continue this to its final resting spot, if you can see my cursor, the road would run here and then come down and head towards Brennan, and we would lose a lot of access back here. It would be really tight to get construction vehicles in and around the building. So we had talked about leaving this as is for at least another year or so, because or probably 2 years, probably the duration until we're ready to open the new school, because there's also large mechanical equipment and the emergency generator that will be placed here in the final resting spot, servicing the new school, which will decrease the amount of room we have to move even further. So that's not happening anytime soon, Jack.
Okay. Is the Western Field still on track for about September 15th to be turned over?
Yes. Yep. The key is getting that AstroTurf to start right after the 4th, and that's on schedule right now.
What about the new traffic circle? When will we be implementing that?
That one also up for discussion, Jack. We kicked around after steel erection, but the more we think about it, we're thinking maybe it makes sense to hold off even further, because just the amount of traffic and deliveries that are going to come through here, and they're generally larger vehicles. We think there's a chance to damage the rotary throughout the course of construction, and I don't know that it's worth the risk for the next 2 years. So maybe it's a talking point for the Wednesday group to check the temperature of just leaving this as a 4-way intersection for now, for a little longer, just to, again, keep it so that nothing gets damaged. And then the longer we wait, the nicer it looks once we go to open up the new school.
Well, one of the reasons for putting that traffic circle in was to slow traffic down, but the way it's configured now, it does. And since we're not going to be opening the north-south connector anytime soon, the circle really wouldn't serve any purpose, and it might be a hindrance.
Agreed. I mean, it would, yeah, this north-south connector here does not get opened up until we open the new school in 2022. You're right.
Okay. And what about topping off, Steve?
Yeah, so we are closing in on the exact date. It's the week of July 6th. And the reason we don't know the exact day yet is we're trying to get some of the trusses installed at the gymnasium, like I discussed, because there's similar trusses that form the rest of the cafeteria, the roof of the cafeteria. So once we get a feel for the ease or difficulty associated with the trusses, we'll be able to pinpoint, all right, X number per day over the next few weeks, and we can nail down the exact day for the topping off. So I'm hoping early next week we know, Jack, the exact day.
And then we've talked about what that ceremony would look like. Does someone want to address that?
I can take a stab at it if you want.
Sure.
I can help you with it. So
Bill, Mark, jump in if I say something incorrect. Actually, let me get the different view that might help. But short version is the beam is on the south side of the building. So zoom in here.
It's the top of the glass wall at the back end of the cafeteria, is it not?
Yeah, so it's roughly, if you can see my cursor, it's roughly right about here. So we feel the best vantage point and the safest vantage point for all non-construction personnel would be to actually set up on the football field, whether it's in the stadium or somewhere on the field itself.
Steve, the 50-yard line is actually the best perspective.
Okay.
If you look at that overhead, there are already some benches that are there that we set up to record our pre-recorded graduation speeches, so we can reconfigure those so that there's appropriate social distancing, and it'll be a really nice vantage point.
Yeah, so we think that'll be a great view, Jack. And then, we're thinking roughly just after afternoon, so somewhere in the 1 o'clock range would work best. And, the crane would be set up kind of roughly in this area here. The ceremony itself will take all of, 10 minutes because the beam will be in place already and all rigged up. So it's just a matter of slowly lifting it and putting it into place and bolting it together.
And we're going to arrange for a time before that day for some signatures?
Yes. So the thought right now would be to place the beam over here in the Bray lot and have it maybe in a temporary fenced enclosure, and have a very specific times when people would be allowed to sign it. It would be a bring your own marker kind of thing. And by having it in a fence, you'll be able to see if someone's in there for social distancing purposes. And we would lock it up at the end of the day. I'm thinking maybe a couple of days that we have that, and then we'd get it back behind our fence, so it's even safer. But we'll let you know when the beam arrives. It's being painted in Canada now. It's going to come out white. So we'll let you know when it shows up, and let everyone have the opportunity to sign it.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from any of the members of the SBC?
Yes, Jack, I have a couple comments.
Go right ahead, Mike.
So, Steve, I got to kind of change hats here since I'm the superintendent of public works, too. I couldn't agree more with your suggestion to keep Ratburn Road the way it is right now and not to install that rotary until we're ready to put that all the way through. The potential for damage and stuff like that is just too much.
Yep.
I totally agree with both those suggestions. I back both of those full-heartedly. I think that is definitely the way to go moving forward. So I do appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Number two,
also plowing too, Mike, right?
Yes. Okay. And my other question now would be, where the Coltech system is installed on the artificial fields. How does that get finished? Is turf laid over the top of that, or is there a walkway incorporated on top of that, or what happens to that? The infiltration system.
Yep.
It's buried, Mike, if I understand it. Isn't that
That's
correct,
correct.
Steve?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the amount of fill that's under the turf and the turf itself is carried over the top of the infiltration system, so that there's no difference in elevation between the regular field and the field that's on top of the system.
So I think my final follow-up question was that is it when the system has to be, if the system by any means has to be cleaned out, how is the access to that is going to be?
There are both inspection ports and access for cleaning that are part of the system that were designed to be kind of off-field, if you will. And so that was considered when we did the original design for that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the plans. I'm not trying to be a skunk at a lawn party here, Steve. I just can't remember. It's been so long ago, you know?
Yeah, that was certainly a requirement of the Conservation Commission is that we be able to maintain that, Mike. And I don't remember exactly where, but I do remember that we have access to get in under there.
That's correct. It's over from the right-hand side of the image. The tanks all interconnect. There are inspection ports along it that will be within the finish, but I think the cleanouts are more towards the east end that we have to access. And not everything is flush. Nothing is above grade. So.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Joe, as long as you're speaking, Joe, the Conservation Commission last night approved a minor change to the system. Do you want to update the committee on that?
Well, it actually was basically a non-issue. We had reduced actually eliminated most of the flat underdrain system that was running under the synthetic field. A couple of issues came up and we found that it was more belts and suspenders than unnecessary. It wasn't figured into the calculations that were done by our engineers and those that were submitted to Concom before for drainage and for retention of the flow going into the perimeter drains. And so both Concom and their peer engineering firm, Horsley Witten, had no reluctance to approve it. And so we're moving forward.
Okay, Mike, did I cut you off?
Nope, you didn't cut me off. Thanks for the answer, Steve. I appreciate it. And Jack.
And any other members of the committee have any other questions?
Yeah, Jack, I have a question on that system. What exactly is that system doing? Is that leaching water out or taking water in?
It's an infiltration system. It holds water. Mostly that system was required by the Concom to withhold water from the new roadway system, both at the Rotary and the North-South Connector Road, to retain it periodically and release it slowly so it doesn't overwhelm the wetland stream that runs along Drummond Street and affect the people across the street who had complaints about water getting into their basement. It's intended to resolve the ongoing problem that they had with, and if you remember the way the field was originally, with a lot of buildup of water during rainy parts of the season where you'd have flooding at the north end of the fields. And this is intended to deal with that. This is not intended to collect or distribute water from the fields. There is like a 12-inch layer of gravel under the synthetic turf that accumulates and holds water, but then also drains it to a perimeter drain pipe that runs around the rest of the field and then interconnects to a series of manholes into the drainage system outside on Drummond Street. So this would have been in place whether or not we had the synthetic field or the West fields remained as the grass fields that they were. It was a requirement for the roadway work and to try and correct some of the water flow that was going on towards the people on the north side of Drummond Street.
Just so everyone knows, sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
This is a storage area then for catch basins in the street then?
It basically retains water so it doesn't flow as quickly out into the stream
It's a
And
holding area.
It's basically, yeah, they're what they are. They're chambers. These ones are actually concrete. A lot of the ones we install are like plastic looking Quonset hut type things.
Yeah,
And
I'm familiar with.
basically they just filled up with gravel so that there's space for water. And then the water retains there and it's released out slowly into the system. So it doesn't know. We do a lot for wetlands. There's wetlands here too. So it's protecting the wetlands also.
Okay. All right, I understand. Thank you.
Jerry, just, this is basically an underground detention pond.
Yep.
And,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep, I understand. That's what I thought it was, but I wanted to clarify it.
you know, stormwater controls didn't exist when the original high school was built, so there were none out there. We have taken into account all of the stormwater for the site, and this is part of it, as well as for part of the new roadways. But, you know, people have moved away from the traditional detention ponds because they have to be mowed and they breed mosquitoes and children and small animals can wander into them. And so this is the modern way of doing things. Joe, have I stated that correctly? Joe?
Pulled to Steve there. Sorry. Yes, that's correct. It's what happens most of the time now, instead of having where people are averse to having the open areas for all the reasons you said. This is more expensive initially, but it keeps the water in the direct path of the flow, but it also hides it from view, and you can do things. And we have a lot of these in the main building also, mostly under parking lots. If you recall, there are, I think, 4 separate infiltration systems around there that also retain water and allow it to flow out slowly. That was also a requirement of the Concom.
Yeah, because you can neither overfeed the wetlands nor can you starve the wetlands of the water that was going there naturally.
Yes.
And so that's also part of what the Conservation Commission required of us. Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Jack, just a comment for Jason. I mean, I don't want to keep going back and forth on this, but you know, just so Jason knows as you know, facilities director, that all these type of systems now require vac trucks to clean. When that thing does have to be clean and part of a maintenance schedule, that is a vac service. And the city of Attleboro, unfortunately, to date, does not have a vac truck. So that's something that would have to be figured into Jason's budget long-term to have that system clean. It's just, it can't be done traditionally like the clamshell or something like that. This is all kind of a specialized cleaning service if something were to block up in there. And I'm not saying I'm against them. I'm totally for them. I think they're a neat system. I mean, they're working well. They work great. But I think Jason just needs to know that there is a maintenance cost moving forward with those to make sure they're operating at capacity and fully operational. That's all.
Well, Jason, I'm going to charge you with remembering, Jason, that at the end, if there's money left in the contingency, that you bring it up that we should buy you one of those.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
So anybody else have anything on this part of the update? Okay, then Steve, where would you like to go next?
We'll go to the last 4 OALs of the project.
Okay.
So I'll do all 4 of them and then vote on all 4 at once, Jack?
That would be good.
Okay. So first one is for wall protection and wall covering. We went out to 5 different contractors, reviewed the scope and the bids with Skanska and KBA, and are recommending RJ Forbes, who happens to be an Attleboro subcontractor. They're based right in Attleboro, for $268,100. We have some additional allowances built in for repairs and protection and a couple of different items in here. So the total package is $391,100. So that's a $100,000 savings to the budget.
We always like to hear those things.
Yes. Number 43, miscellaneous equipment. So this is all the specialized shop equipment and all the specialized lab equipment and shop equipment. It's a laundry list of different pieces and parts ranging in all kinds of levels of complexity and cost, quite frankly. We had a $4 million budget for it, and we're recommending AET Labs at the amount of $2,452,618. We have a couple of allowances, a little bit bigger in this particular case. One, just because it's 2 years out and model numbers could change and technology could change. So we want to be able to adapt and get the best available in 2022 when we purchase this. So we've got some allowances in there for that. And if any of the MEPs need to change in the future, this is where we'd also capture the acoustic shells that we voted on earlier. So the all-in price is $2,872,618. So that's 1.2 million under budget. And I do want to point out that AET Labs has already worked with the school to purchase some robotics equipment from a different grant. So Bill, I think, is and the school are familiar with AET Labs. So we think it's a very good fit.
And a very good number.
Yeah. The next one is final cleaning. 4 bids for this one as well. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's cleaning the interior and the exterior of the building at the end of the project. We are recommending Jerez LLC for $320,800. We also have some allowances in here for cleaning of some of the high traffic areas. We're probably going to have to do it a couple of times. It's just the nature of the beast. So we've captured money for that. So the all-in number is $445,800. That is $4,000 under budget. And then the last and final is signage. It's both interior and exterior signage, building signage and room signage. We are recommending intelligent signage for $408,000. Again, some small allowances in here for this, for a couple of different types of signs. Total package is $450,500. Unfortunately, this one was $25,000 over budget, but the net on these 4 is about 1.3 million under budget. So good news all around.
Okay. Any members of the committee have any questions on those 4 OALs? Then a motion is in order to accept those and recommend to them, well, just to accept them, I think.
Move to accept these AOLs.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
And Jack, I have a discussion, if you will.
Sure, Mike.
First of all, I'm glad to hear that a local vendor, Forbes, got the painting. I mean, that's great news. And to piggyback on that question, when it comes to the signs or any contract, we're supposed to give them preference to local vendors. Was there any type of percentage of dollar value where we go with a local person instead of an outside, whether or not they were within 10 or 15% of the package, or is it still low bid is low bid?
So there, for the non-trades, Mike, there was still a pre-qualification process that had to be done. And because of the size and the magnitude of this project, unfortunately, some of the local guys, some of the local contractors weren't able to pre-qualify. So did we keep track of the percentage? No. I can tell you that I believe straight up Attleboro subcontractors, I think Forbes is the only one. We did reach out to a couple that were in the vicinity. For instance, the fire protection subcontractor is out of North Attleboro. But when it comes to straight up Attleboro subcontractors, I think Forbes is the only one.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. That answered my question.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Well, then we'll proceed to take a roll call vote. Dave Sawyer,
Yes.
Jason Parento,
Yes.
Lori Reagan,
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki,
Yes.
Jerry Freecott,
Yes.
Bill Rooney,
Yes.
Ed Stanton,
Yes.
Mark Furtado,
Yes.
Rob Geddes,
Yes.
Mike Tyler,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That has passed unanimously. Change order 11, is that where you're going to next, Steve?
Yes. So I'll just highlight the change requests that are incorporated in the change 11 that we have not talked about previously, if that's okay, Jack. And then
Yeah.
I'll just read all of them that are included. So the ones that are new news that I wanted to highlight, CR 99, which was PR 19, VAV box and associated piping revisions. This actually came in at a credit of $29,995, and Bob Charest from Skanska played a huge part in getting that credit to where it is. So I just wanted to recognize that. It was a good catch by him to increase that. CR 110, we hadn't talked about before, theater lighting revisions for $8,335. We found there was a fixture that was discontinued. So we had to replace it with a new model. And of course the new model was a little more expensive, but well worth it. And even the theater lighting consultant was involved in reviewing that one. CR 112 lab casework stretcher rail credit, offered by the lab casework sub, just a little bit different construction resulted in a $7,214 credit to the project. CR 114 plumbing pipe size revisions in building A. This is something that just came up through the coordination efforts. Some pipe sizes needed to increase, and that is a $27,094 upcharge there. ASI 41 operable partition height revisions. This is just making all the operable partitions a uniform height and a uniform detail. It was a $4,800 increase. And then CR 119, CR adder reconciliation is a credit of $52,383. And what that is as we were going through all these change requests, if there is a change in the project, we need to add for insurances, additional insurances and fees on top of that. And so we were tracking that along the way, but since we were able to maintain budget or under budget for the GMP, all those get credited back. So there's not a double dip, and our insurances and fees are artificially inflated. So that credits back all that money that we were carrying just in case this was over budget. So just to run through really quick what's included in change order number 11, CR 72, 80, 83, 88, 91, 94, 97, 98, 99, 103, 104, 106, 110, 112, 114, 118, and 119. The grand total for change order 11 is $99,679.92. But I want to point out that the OALs I just read and this change order are all rolled into the GMP. So we are not increasing the GMP. Everything I just talked about is in the GMP that we're going to talk about next.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on change order number 11? I don't hear anything. Jackie?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Dave Sawyer?
Yes.
Jason Parento?
Yes.
Laurie Reagan?
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki?
Yes.
Jerry Freecott?
Yes.
Bill Rooney?
Yes.
Ed Stanton?
Yes.
Mark Furtado?
Yes.
Rob Geddes?
Yes.
Mike Tyler?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so that is approved unanimously. Now we're going to go to the GMP. If I understand everybody correctly, we have something that Anjanette sent out by email late today there may have been a slight change to it. That's because I just saw another email come through. Who is going to explain this? Anjanette?
Sure,
Mary Ann?
I can speak to the document, and then Mary Ann will pipe in a little bit after to talk more about the GMP itself. So Steve, I'm wondering if you could possibly, I got my laptop crashed yesterday, so I'm a little bit at a little bit of a disadvantage. So Steve, if you could share your screen and put that up on the screen, can you please? Thank you.
And Steve, while you're doing that, we always ask each month, but I had forgotten to before when we were doing the update. We are on time, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
And we're going to just see in a moment that we're on budget.
Yes, we are.
The two most important questions for every meeting.
Correct.
So go ahead. So of course, while he's doing that, everyone, if you remember, our budget updates had been divided into the 4 bid packages previously and totaled our number of 259, 918, 210. And now we're going to a different format because we're getting to a different way of accounting. So go ahead, Anjanette.
Okay, thanks, Jack. So that being said, how we've reorganized this information is by cost code. That's how we track things. That's how we bill it out. That's how it's going to be categorized to the MSBA on the updated project funding agreement. And the values there that you see, the GMP value, are the contract values excluding the allowances. And I'll let Mary Ann speak to that a little bit later. But as you can see, all of these values here, the total of the cost code values. So if you look at masonry, we had contracts with both Lighthouse and Phoenix Bay State, different bid packages. So that's the combined total for that particular cost code. I did note which one were trade contractors. Those were all the filed sub bids, just for reference. And then as you get down, I have included all of the OALs that Steve just discussed. Those numbers are in there. And again, those numbers represent the contract value minus the allowances. So if you go down just a little bit more, Steve, at the bottom of this, there's a subcontract allowance number. So that number there is the total value of all of the allowances we are carrying for the project. You know, for example, Steve mentioned, you know, for, you know, the cleaning, we have additional money in allowances for, you know, certain, you know, if they have to come back or whatever. And the money in the allowances, if it's not spent, it can be redistributed, and that goes back to the owner. And we tried to you know, project what we thought might come down the road, so that we can minimize any changes in the future. So that being said, if you go down a little bit more, Steve, the total, just tiny bit. So the total value of all of the subcontract as well as the subcontract allowances is that $193,224,449. And then just below that on the second page, those are the adders, the CM adds. Those are all the insurances in there. We also have the construction contingency. That would be the CM contingency. All of the general conditions, general requirements, and again, the additional insurance costs. And then we're gonna give Consigli a little bit of money there too. So their fee is in there as well. So the total of the adders there is the $29,863,863. And then the values at the bottom just reflect the CM construction costs, the pre-construction costs, our OPM service fees, KBA's designer services. We do have a line item on the project funded agreement for the miscellaneous project costs, some furnishings and equipment, the owner's construction contingency, and the owner's contingency. Those are those values there. So in totality, we have the to the penny, the 259, 918, 210. And so what we've spent to date, including the invoices that were just approved, is $52,249,185. Our balance to finish is around a little over $200 million. So on that note, I'm going to let Mary Ann explain a little bit more about the GMP itself and the process.
So if I could just ask one question, we have $7 million in allowances. We have $4.8 million in construction contingency, another $1 million in the owner's contingency. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, Mary Ann?
Okay, so just to follow on what Anjanette spoke about, we've spent the last really, year working on refining this budget to have it in totality become the contract with Consigli. So, we've moved from what really is a budget to contract values. What we've found is it's been a very good process that involved the design team, Castle Booze, Consigli, multiple team members, Steve and Corey, Anjanette and I and Bob. So we've been looking at this in a lot of ways in breaking the contract into the sum of its parts and just vetting this all the way. So with the general conditions, we looked at the staffing costs, and that staffing cost is called general conditions, and it's a lump sum part of the contract. We then also looked at general requirements, and those are costs that are billed as they are incurred, and money not spent would really go back to the owner. So we built a thoughtful budget around that. Because we're looking at now that we understand the project better from 2 years ago when we brought Consigli on board, we're able to look at the phasing, the scheduling, say, okay, what do we really need here in terms of staging, dumpsters, porta-johns. Those are all the kinds of items that comes under general requirements. We then carried a 2.5% construction contingency. And what a construction contingency is it's an amount that's allotted to cover any additional costs that result from, for example, unforeseen conditions, that something wasn't evident at the time that a subcontract was awarded, but it becomes evident later on. So it's for unanticipated costs, overruns. That money is also there for expediting or accelerating the project. So there's pots of money where we try to identify what are the risks in the project. So one of the things we did is we established allowances, and there are two types of allowances. There are subcontractor allowances and there are owner allowances. If we take, Anjanette had mentioned the subcontractor allowances being approximately 7 million. When we add the owner's allowances to that, to cover items that we know they need to be addressed, but there might not be enough detail. So for example, we know that we're going to run into hazardous material in the building when we do demolition, but we don't really know how much unless we tore the building apart now to have a greater certainty in the analysis. So that's an example. So we've carried in total $10.3 million where we identified 162 different allowances where there's risk. And so that money is there above and beyond the subcontractors' contracts so that we can understand that. So the owner's allowances also look at things like temporary heat, temporary fuel, things like that, police details. So we made some adjustments to those allowances. Some were adjusted up, some were adjusted down. But the point was is that as we got into the project, we have a better understanding as we went through the development of the design and we got into the construction to understand that. Another category that's part of this GMP, guaranteed maximum price amendment, is looking at assumptions and clarifications. So sometimes there's events and circumstances that we expect to occur during a project. They occur during all projects. And so what we did is that we reviewed this again consigli with the design team in Skanska to say, you know, when we look at the scope of work and the specifications and the drawings and some of the conditions in the field, and we're buying out subcontracts, what were those assumptions and clarification? So what we're doing is we're bringing a greater level of detail in describing what those potential risks are and being very clear about whether we carried money for them or not. So those things that we carried money for, we have allowances, we have contingencies, and those things that we didn't carry money for, it's because there is an assessment that, you know, we've covered it in the subcontracts and we expect that we're not going to have a major issue there. So when you go through a guaranteed maximum price amendment here, we think we've put a very thoughtful, I was going to use the term budget, but it's more than that. We believe we've put a very thoughtful contract amendment together, looking at potential risks, trying to make certain assumptions, good practices, where we feel as though we have an ability here to respond. That the construction contingency is about 4.9 million. We have general requirements that is roughly about 4.5 million. We have general conditions, that's staffing and labor for the project. We've reviewed updated schedules, site logistics plans. We've really looked at this 1,000 different ways to try and come up with a strategy that will be reliable and durable through the life of the project. So I'd like to say that I'm very pleased with the work that KBA has done, the work that Consigli has done, and the work that my own team has done to pull this all together, because this has been months in the work, even though what you're looking at is a 2-page document on the screen. Doesn't seem like much, but the analysis behind it is very important to understand. So
Steve, could you just scroll down so we can see those last numbers again?
Yes.
So thank you, Mary Ann. Now, Mary Ann, one thing that I believe I understand, but I want to make sure we all understand, is that we've had 11 change orders so far, but those 11 change orders and the 110 items that made them up, they all disappear. We start over with change order 1 now. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the rationale for that is that we made a decision collectively as a group early on that we would go through the procurement process of construction manager at risk. And the benefit of construction manager at risk, CM at risk, is that you get to start construction before you completed design. So we anticipated that in the start of construction that we would save money through escalation. You buy something today versus a year from now or a year and a half from now, there's a savings in escalation. But then there's also a cost, and the cost would be those change orders where as we're completing design and we're going through coordination, mechanical coordination, having what is being developed through the construction drawings by the design team and the engineers, that we're tying that all together as we're continuing on with construction. And the success story here is that that process allowed us to save more money than we spent. And the opportunity to that was to get us into the building a year earlier instead of waiting until we were 100% complete with the design, where you would be putting a shovel in the ground this summer. And so it's a good process. It's been a thoughtful process, and it's a process where there's a lot of accountability. So to answer your question, all of those changes are part of what the coordination is, and we're going to start with the budget with the MSBA, where we're saying our GMP is exactly what our budget was that we told them a couple of years ago. So that's good news. We are on budget. We're starting with 0 change orders, and we're starting with our owner's construction contingency and owner's contingency intact without having to tap it. So it's a good story. And you know, I'm pretty pleased about it, because this is where you stop holding your breath saying, oh my God, we made it work. You know, and it took the whole team to do this.
So the bottom line is we got a 15-month head start by starting the site work in April of 19.
Yes.
And the cost of that were those change orders, those 11 change orders, but it was certainly well worth it to get the job going that much quicker.
Yes.
So can I just add one thing before I should have stated this previously? The values that are carried in those subcontract numbers up above, those include all of the previous change orders are rolled into those numbers.
Good. Okay, then I guess we'll throw it open to the committee. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Jack, one more thing. The committee should also keep in mind that we're doing fields at about $4 million that were not part of the original scope. So they're actually well below the budgeted number.
Yes, we were able to achieve enough savings that we could confidently really upgrade those fields from unplayable fields to something that will be available this fall and will not have to be redone 3 years from now because of the wear and tear that they're going to get. It'll also mean that a number of our teams won't have to play all their away games for the next few years. So it's a good point, Mark. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Then, Mary Ann, would I be correct in saying we need a motion to approve the GMP as presented tonight?
Yes.
Move to approve the GMP as presented this evening.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? I guess we will proceed to call the roll then. Oh, somebody have something? No? Okay. I'll call the roll. David Sawyer,
Yes.
Jason Parento,
Yes.
Laurie Reagan,
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki,
Yes.
Jerry Freecott,
Yes.
Bill Rooney,
Yes.
Ed Stanton,
Yes.
Mark Furtado,
Yes.
Rob Geddes. You there, Rob? He's muted and his camera's off. Mike Tyler?
Sorry, had to step away for a moment. Yes.
Okay, Mike Tyler?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so that is unanimous. Other than talking about our next meeting dates and then adjourning, does anybody else have anything they want to bring forward this evening?
I would like to say something if I may.
Sure.
We will be, this is the budget part of the GMP. We have all of the business terms that will be a much larger packet that we will be presenting for signature to, in recommendation to the mayor. And we're just pulling that. All of that information has been reviewed and vetted, but much too big a document to go through it in this moment, but we will be submitting that for approval.
Okay.
It's a formal it's a formal instrument to amend the contract.
Okay. I guess I'd just like to add that this is another major milestone in this project. And I want to thank our team and our committee for the work that they have done to get us to this point, both in terms of the actual construction of the building and getting these numbers together and making this project a reality. So thank you all.
Oh, that's great.
We have our next meeting scheduled for July 15th. And then does August 12th work as the meeting after that?
That works for me.
Okay. Hearing no objections, then we will ask Jeremy to post July 15th and August 12th. And with that, I guess a motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
I will call the roll. Dave Sawyer,
Yes.
Jason Parento,
Yes.
Lori Reagan,
Yes.
Jackie Romanicki,
Yes.
Jerry Freacott,
Yes.
Bill Rooney,
Yes.
Terry DeSisto. Oh, excuse me. Ed Stanton,
Yes.
Mark Furtado,
Yes.
Rob Geddes,
Yes.
Mike Tyler,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So we are adjourned at 6:37. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
What's up, Brian?